Hi, everyone. It's Connie Fife, and welcome back to another episode of, well, Don't Blame Me. And because we don't need to take life so seriously. And I am so glad that you are here. And the reason that we're all here, we come together, is because we also learn together, we share together, and we support each other together. And today's program, well, what is it about? Well, you know what? Not a damn thing. We just gonna talk, and we have some stories that we're gonna be sharing with you. And along the way, we'll throw in some learnings so you can see that you did learn something a little bit today, and you could just fill in the blanks from our conversation. And of course, make sure that you reach out and share your nuggets and your feedback and comments on our Facebook group. So let me introduce you to today's guest. She has overcome some extreme obstacles. Just learning about her and having conversations with her and to where she is today, you're really going to want to listen in because she has some really strong stories that she's going to be sharing about those obstacles, from both personally and also professionally, and starting her life in witness protection and foster homes. And y'all know, my heart reaches out to those in foster care and the work that we do through our Born Foundation. She is also, she was leading to teenage addiction and also homelessness. But after climbing the corporate ladder in leadership roles for almost 20 years, she founded Pulse Marketing in 2013, and facing the challenges of an entrepreneur today and, all of the tumultuous marriage that left her with the devastation of her husband's suicide. But yet, despite all of these challenges, she found a real sense of purpose along the way, and recently writing a memoir about her life experiences, and that she has dedicated her life to empowering others both personally and professionally. So welcome to Don't Blame Me with Serena Mastin.
Hey, Serena, for having me. I appreciate and I'm honored to be here.
I am so excited to be with you. There is so much, and as we've been talking, that we do have in common. But it's not just us. I'm always surprised when I talk to people about our foundation, which is supporting, the young adults aging out of foster care. And now I do have to preface, I was never in foster care, but I was raised by my grandmother. And, a lot of those challenges along the way, they really define who we are as we become adults. And you and I were talking earlier about how, we're done, we got this, we recovered, we've had our counseling, but just those little triggers that set us off. So I want to start by asking you, when those triggers happen for you, how do you bring that back to reality and where you're at today?
Well, I think the interesting thing is your body does keep score. It holds on to trauma. And so like any time that you feel anxious, you get that little stomach turning feeling, that's because your body and your brain are connected. So the challenge is that if your brain is not recognizing that there's a trigger, but your body is, that disconnect between that trauma is a little bit more challenging to face, which I'm still learning. When it comes to me being triggered and recognizing that I'm being triggered, a lot of times I have to step away and ask myself the question, is this bothering me because of me? Or is there something deeper that I need to really be thinking about? Is it bothering me because of them? Typically, if something's bothering me because of someone else, it's because of me. Because I have something that I haven't dealt with yet. And so taking that moment away, and a lot of times I'll write down my feelings in a journal, just to get them off my chest. And then I'll circle back to them when I'm in a better headspace to see if there's a pattern or something that I can see stand out from that experience.
And journaling is a really good way. I know that's one thing that's always helped me. is, when, like you said, when there's something, and there's always something, especially as business leaders, right? There's always something that's going to come in front of us and, rear its nasty head. And it's like, okay, how are we going to handle this today? Let me just, focus this without reacting to that. And I found myself, before I was able to go through my own trauma, that I was more reactive to situations, and it wasn't always healthy.
No, I mean, I think that's very normal when you haven't faced and healed, or worked through some of that trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Reaction or a lack of reaction, freeze, right? Freeze is the same response as fight or flight. It's just the other side of the spectrum. But when you are unaware, you have a tendency to lean into those responses.
Right.
Once you become a lot more self-aware through the healing process, I recognize that I can actually see some of those things within me now. It doesn't make them go away necessarily, but it allows me to be more aware so that I can make shifts and changes in my behavior or my reaction.
Right. So, I mean, your story, I mean, is one of resilience. And also, when you talk about brave boundaries. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I know it's going to come out in your book.
Oh, I actually didn't put brave boundaries in my book, but I am excited to share. I did not know I knew how to set boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to actually follow through on boundaries, because when they kept getting broken, then I felt like the consequence would impact everyone, not just the one person. So I had a really hard time with following through with them. And so I had to create the acronym BRAVE in order not just to remind me of the boundaries, but to remind me that when these things happen, not only do I set the expectation in advance, but when these things happen and people are aware that these are my boundaries, they already know that with a loving heart, I have to step away because I can't allow those things to happen. But so BRAVE, B is actually for setting the boundaries. So boundaries need expectations, they need clarity, right? And sometimes we think we have boundaries, but we don't communicate them. So
True.
B is to remind you that that's the first thing. And it's also to remind me. R is for reliability. And that means you do what you say you're going to do. So if there's a client relationship or a personal relationship, friendship, and they don't do what they say they're going to do, that actually breaks one of my boundaries. And so then I have to step back. So that's a huge one for me, because there's a lot of people that say things and don't follow through.
Right.
So the A is for accountability, which means you own it. You own your part. You don't own the other person's part, which is the codependent behavior that I fell into a lot, in my younger adult life. I owned everyone else's stuff and my stuff and my neighbor's stuff and the dog, whatever they did, I owned it too.
Right. I'm with you there, sister.
Yes. And so when I say accountability, it's also for the other person to own their part. Because I'm holding these boundaries up to protect myself, but also to create a barrier around my relationships. The V is for vulnerability. In every type of communication, transparency and vulnerability are at the forefront. If I don't feel safe, then this is not the type of relationship, client, or friendship that I want to have. And then the last one is also equally important. It's equal effort. And equal effort actually represents the two people are equally invested in the process, in each other. It's not one-sided. What I recognized a lot in my past is that equal effort was not a part of my relationships. I was giving, sacrificing, trying to earn love, and they weren't giving anything in return. And so that is not something that I will condone or tolerate. And so that's where brave comes from.
I love that. I love those acronyms. We need to remind ourselves every day to be brave. And a couple things like you talked about, the accountability parts, but also being vulnerable, but yet protecting yourself.
Yeah.
So, you don't let in that negativity because negativity will feed on your emotions. So I love that. And then you also talk about the LUV in leadership.
Yes. So LUV, love, is an acronym for listen, understand, and validate. So that is huge because when you communicate with love, listen, understand, and validate, then you're allowing the other person to feel safe. When you communicate in a direct way that might not actually make the other person feel safe, it's still healthy to be direct. But are you listening? Are you understanding what they're actually communicating? And then are you repeating it, mirroring it, and validating that you heard them? Or is it a situation where you're only sharing your side and then shutting down? So there's the part of love in leadership that you have to do that in every aspect of your role because you have to model it in order for them to mirror it.
Right, right. So, I mean, with all of the trauma that you've gone through, and I know that you've, clearly had done a lot of work on yourself. There's a lot of people out there, and especially right now, I mean, the whole mental health movement, it's really, it's scary. It's so much is scary. What's some advice that you have? Like, what gets you going, motivated in the morning when you feel those moments of, that reverse back to something that happened in the past or something that triggered? What are some techniques to move you forward with that?
Well, first, I have a disclaimer. I'm always in progress. My knowledge is only
As we all are.
my knowledge is only through post-traumatic wisdom. So I would say, the hardest part is when we isolate. So I have to say that typically when there's mental health issues, the first thing that we do is hide. We isolate, we hide because of judgment, because of fear, all those things. But the first step is you have to find your tribe, a community of people, whether it's a group, whether it's, a community like in a church setting, or whether it's just really close friends. You have to be open with them so that they know that you're struggling. So that's number one, because if you keep hiding that you're struggling, then you're not going to pull yourself out of it. And it'll just last a lot longer. So that's number one. Number two is create kind of a plan. Like, where do you see yourself? I did something fun for myself because I needed to visualize. So I created a Pinterest board, right, of all of the things that I wanted in my life. I wanted to do speaking engagements. I wanted to do a TED Talk. I wanted to publish my book, on as a series, right? I want to eventually be able to travel, but not to travel for, is tourism, to travel and serve in different areas of the world. And so in order for me to visualize this, I created the vision board. And then my steps to actually reach it is when I find myself back in that dark place. I have it right in front of me. It's on my desktop, literally right now. And I have a statement. And my statement is my mantra. It's I am enough. I give enough. I have enough. I do enough. And I am enough. So I give enough, I have enough, I do enough, and I am enough.
I have one similar the I statements, and then I finish it with your dreams are your reality waiting for you to get there.
Yes, I love that. The
Yeah.
I statements are huge when you're in your own head, right? Because you
Yeah.
have to hoard over those moments.
Mhm.
'Cause otherwise, you get in your own head and I'm a failure. I am a failure, right? You
Right.
say all these I am statements in your mind when
Right.
you're upset. But what you don't do is you don't shift those negative statements into positive affirmations. And that's what we have to do.
Right.
And then the other big one is if in fact journaling is not for everyone, there are a million resources and apps out there. So one of my most favorites, and this is for all the women, okay? It's Sanity and Self. They have 5-minute videos all about the issues that women face. And literally, when you open the app, it says, take off your bra.
Oh, by the end of the day, I want to listen to that because it comes,
Yeah, because when you're having a rough day, you do need something that
let loose.
takes your mind off of everything. And because you could get in a dark place, and there's
Yes.
I even still today, I struggle with
Mhm.
it. And so I have to keep these things as daily practices.
Yeah. And it is so true. The one of the things that I struggle with is letting people down.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with that because it was always, my
Because it
fault,
was
my
always you.
fault. It was always
No,
me.
exactly, because you had to carry the world on your shoulders.
And, I took care of the house. I lived with my grandmother. I took care of all my cousins. That's the one thing I do struggle with today is I don't want to let people down. And
That's your inner voice.
right. And I listen to that inner voice. And you would think, you know, many years later, but it's just, like you said, it's just something, certain things just stick with you. So that is, again, one of my I am statements. And that is reminding myself that, we don't have to be perfect. We, do the best that we can. But, don't worry about that because we're not letting ourselves down.
Yeah.
You don't want to let yourselves down. So, what do you feel that has been your greatest role? Now, I know you're a mom, and um, everything that you've done, from writing your book, having your own business. What do you feel has been your greatest role?
Something that I recently recognized that has been a constant in my life that somebody actually told it to me. They said, you are an advocate for healing. And once they said that, it connected with me immediately.
Mm,
For my entire life, I've been a nurturer. I've also been an
yes.
enabler. I've also, I've been all those things.
Right.
But the beauty is that when they created that message or in a positive way, we
Mhm.
recognize that that's who I've been my whole life.
Yeah.
And that is the role that now I embrace. And yes, I'm a
Wow.
mother. Yes, I'm a business owner. And all of those things are good.
Mm,
But I couldn't actually take care of everyone around me if I wasn't an advocate, not only for my own healing, but
right. For others too. The one thing that I did in searching my personal book that we discussed, I actually went out and I interviewed 50 professional women.
wow.
And I did this a few years back. I want, and some of the stories are going to end up in my book, but I just wanted to get, you know, and for me, growing up, oh, that woman is professional. She's untouchable and they're perfect, in the eyes of everybody else. But when I did these interviews, my eyes opened to all of these women had some type of obstacle that they've had to work through to get where they are. And the one person, Laura to death, she's actually my attorney today. Um, when I had this conversation with her, she said, "Yeah, I grew up on the other side of the tracks. We didn't have running water in my house until I was about 8 years old." And yes, and I was like, wow. And today, and she's a businesswoman and a business owner, and she's an attorney, and she's this, and this. And I just think, wow. So, and again, when we look out, looking at those pearly gates, I guess if we can call it, we look and we think these people are perfection. And everybody has something. And I know, we always hear that everybody has something that they work through, right? But it really opened my eyes having these conversations with these ladies about every single one of them, from being homeless, living on the streets, then becoming an editor of the New York Times, or um, you know, addicts, or there's something, for everyone that they've had to overcome. And I felt that for me, one of the takeaways was that women are stronger, women are resilient. And then, when there's adversity like that, like you and I have gone through, it makes us stronger.
It does. It also gives us a higher tolerance for stress
Yeah, that.
than most people have. And so sometimes the only disadvantage of that is that we don't even recognize how much stress we put on ourselves at times. We're so it's almost like it's like, when you build a callus, your callus kind of protects your skin.
Right.
Same with tolerance. When you build up this extensive tolerance, you have to be highly aware that you're not driving yourself down too much stress. And so these women being resilient is a beautiful thing, because you just have a higher tolerance for dealing with really big issues because of the issues you've grown up with.
Right.
I think you should do an anthology and have each of their stories featured in the anthology.
That would be a good idea.
I know, that sounds,
Yes. And
but you can't do it until you're done with your book, though.
right, but I finished my book first, right? I've already made that commitment. But yes, definitely. And I'm sure, and I've made a lot of great friends with these ladies along the way. And I'm sure I can go back and bring them all together. And, you're giving me a really good idea about doing like a women's retreat and bringing these ladies back together and creating that. Ooh, ideas are coming.
I know, that'll be fun.
That would be. I'm sure there'd be a lot of wine passing around on that one. So let's go behind the curtain. So this is our section where very, very brief answers on your part, and just to give us a really quick snippet and insight to who you are. So let me start. The very first question is something that people get wrong about you.
Oh, good question. I would say that kindness is weakness.
Ooh. One piece of leadership advice that you've been given, good or bad, that we all should be watchful for in our perfectly life-altering life.
Yeah. Oh, I would say the one piece of wisdom is never be attached to the outcome.
And now, what is one hard leadership lesson that the universe keeps putting in front of you and you're saying, oh, not again?
Oh, the forever one is I struggle with sales because I feel undeserving. So I have a hard time asking to close the deal because of my deserving issues. And that's a continuous issue.
Okay.
No, I'm still overcoming that one.
Okay. And I did the flip of that because I joked that I was an entrepreneur before I even knew what that meant, because I would be riding around the neighborhood on my bicycle and, and cleaning houses and doing grocery shopping for the neighbors and babysitting. And so I'm the opposite of that. I'm like a bear in a China store when you put me in front of a sales.
That I wish I was. I just learned the ugly truth is that your past experiences, your trauma, and even your healing, you still know the things you struggle with, and you need to find the right people in the right seats, because I just give everyone, pour my love into them, but I never close the deal because I feel undeserving. And that's my challenge.
So what is one thing that you are very excited about right now? We know it's your book.
And I'm also really excited that I have been invited to be a part of an anthology of 40 women. And I submitted my story just a few days ago, and it'll be
Okay.
in June of 2024. And so I am super excited. Doesn't even have a name yet, but 40 women are submitting their stories right now. And
Oh,
we're
wow.
releasing it at an Empowered Women event in
Okay.
Korea in June of 2024. So you are invited
Wow.
if you want to
Oh,
come out, back to your stomping ground.
yes, I'll have to come back out. For sure, for sure. That is so exciting. Serena, so let our listeners know where they can learn more about you.
So on my personal side, they can actually go to serenamastin.com. It's my author website. They can also go to pulsemarketingteam.com for the agency website as well.
Wow. Well, thank you for being here. You have been so much fun to talk with, and you are always welcome back to join us again.
And thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Well, everyone, that is all we have for today. Don't blame me. It's a podcast where we are changing the way people see the world because we really and truly need to be gentle with each other and let's not take life so seriously. I'm your host, Connie Fife, and thanks for checking in, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.